The next step in creating our reporting tool is to construct the query. Now I've currently got the sales by division form open that we created in the last movie. Here we have selection points where we can choose a division in year and then a comparison division in year. Let's go ahead and build a query that's going to handle these inputs. I'm going to start by going to the Create tab and choosing a new query in Design View. Let's go ahead and add a few tables to our query. First, we're going to add the orders table. This is where all of our order data is stored. Then I'm going to add the customers table and the states table so I can figure out what state each order was placed from. And I'm also going to add the products table in. That'll allow me to get the price or the total of how much each order cost. So those are the 4 tables that I'm going to add to the query. Let's go ahead and close the Show Table window. Let's start adding in the fields that are going to show up in our query. In our comparison tool, we need to know what year the order was placed. So let's start with that one. I'm going to right-click in this first field and choose Build. Here I'm going to build out a function that extracts the year from our dates. So I'm going to go into Functions, Built-in Functions. I'm going to choose Date and Time and scroll to the bottom to grab the year function. Then we're going to apply that year function to our dates, just like we did in the previous movie. I'll go into my database, into the tables, into the orders table, and into the order date. And I'll double click on that to add the reference up here at the top. Next, I'll give this a common alias. I'll call it year and put a colon at the end of it. So the column is going to be named year, and it's going to use the year function applied to the order date to extract the year. Go ahead and say OK to add that to the query. Next, I'm going to add the division name of where the order was placed from. I'll find that in the states table, and I can just double click on division name to add that to the query. Within each division, I also want to know what states contributed to the order. I'll go ahead and double click on state name to add that. Finally, I want to know the cost of each order, and I can find that in the products table. Let me scroll this down. I'll scroll down and double click on suggested retail to add that to the query. Let's go ahead and run our query to see how it looks. Now right now I'm seeing a line for each individual order. I can see that I have 2,200 orders that were placed in the system. I can see that one order was placed in 2008 from a South Atlantic state of Florida, and its order was $385. The next order was also placed in 2008 in the East North Central state of Ohio for $13,000. Now what I want to do is get a sum total for how much each state contributed to the overall total in each year. So what I need to do is make this a totals query. I'll go back into Design View, change this to a totals query by pressing this button on the ribbon, and underneath suggested retail, I'll change it from group by to sum. Now I'll add up all of the product totals across each state for each year. I'll run it again. We'll see that in 2008, these are the orders that were placed. We can see which divisions contributed to the orders and what state they were from, and we can see the sum total of how much each state contributed in each year. We can see that in 2008, in the East North Central state of Michigan, they contributed $886.50 to the bottom line. So this is our query. Let's go ahead and switch back into Design View. Now right now we're seeing all of the data from our database, but that's not what we want to see on the report. We only want to see the divisions and the years that the user selects on the sales by division form here. So we need to make references to these combo boxes in the query criteria. I'll go back into the query and go down to this criteria row here. For the first criteria, we're going to filter out to just the division and the year ones. So for this criteria under year, I'll right click and go to build. We'll go into our database. We'll choose forms. And because my form is currently open, I can find it in loaded forms. Otherwise, I'd have to go to all forms to see it. But I'll open up loaded forms and choose the sales by division form. Here, I want to see if it's equal to the year one. So CBO year one, I'll double click to add that reference up here in the top. And we'll say OK. So we're going to take a look at year one and division one. So underneath division name, I'll right click in the criteria and go to build. Once again, I'll go into my database, into forms, loaded forms, sales by division, and I'll double click on CBO division one and say OK. So here's the first criteria. I only want to see records that are in the sales by division year one and the sales by division division one. And I want to compare those to the division two and year two. So I'm going to come down here to the OR line and we'll do the same thing. I'll right click, say build, go into my database, into my forms, loaded forms, sales by division, and we're going to find CBO year two and double click. We'll say OK. And we'll also choose the division two here. So under division name, I'll right click and say build, go into the database, into forms, loaded forms, sales by division, and we'll find CBO division two and double click on it to add it up here at the top. Now we'll go ahead and say OK, and my query criteria are complete. Now if I try and run this query now, I'm not going to get any results, and that's because I haven't made any selections here on the form. So let's go ahead and make a few selections. I'm going to choose division one as the Mid-Atlantic states in 2009, and I want to compare those to the Mountain states in the same year of 2009. Let's go ahead and go back to our query, and I'll refresh the data, and I'll see the Mid-Atlantic states in 2009 and the Mountain states in 2009. If I go to my sales by division and change these, let's say Pacific and New England, and come back into my query and refresh it, I should see that updated here. So now my query is completed. Let's go ahead and save it. I'll press the save icon up here and call it sales by division. We'll go ahead and say OK, and that adds it to my navigation pane. So that's 2 pieces down of our reporting tool. The last step is to create the report based off of this query, and we'll do that in the next video.